I never believed that a single act of kindness could change two lives forever. In a small Nigerian village where poverty had become a way of life, there lived a young woman named Amara. Every morning before the sun touched the dusty roads, she was already awake, preparing a simple meal for her sick father. Their tiny mud house had almost nothing inside: an old wooden bed, a broken table, and a leaking roof. But despite having so little, Amara never complained. Her only dream was to keep her father alive. Every day she searched for work, hoping to earn just enough money to buy medicine and food. Some days she returned home with a few coins. Other days she returned with nothing but a tired smile, pretending everything would be all right. Miles away, a convoy of luxury black SUVs entered the village. People stopped whatever they were doing and rushed to the roadside. They had heard that billionaire businessman Ethan Okoye was returning to inspect land for a massive development project. Sitting beside him was his only son, David Okoye. Unlike his wealthy parents, David wasn't impressed by expensive cars or luxury. His attention was fixed on the people outside the window, the children playing barefoot, the elderly struggling to walk, and the families fighting poverty every single day. Then, something unexpected happened. As Amara crossed the road carrying a basket of vegetables, she accidentally tripped. Tomatoes, onions, and peppers scattered across the dusty ground. Most people walked past without stopping. Some even laughed. But David immediately stepped out of the SUV. Without caring about his expensive clothes, he knelt on the dusty road and began picking up every single vegetable. Amara looked at him in disbelief. No rich man had ever treated her with such kindness. When David handed her the last tomato, their eyes met for the first time. Neither of them knew it yet. But that single moment would become the beginning of a love story that would challenge wealth, family, and destiny itself. David couldn't stop thinking about the girl he had met on that dusty village road. There was something about Amara that stayed in his mind. It wasn't just her beauty, it was the quiet strength in her eyes. She carried the weight of poverty with dignity, and that was something money could never buy. The very next morning, David returned to the village alone. This time, he wasn't there to inspect land or follow his father's business plans. He carried a small bag filled with medicine, fresh food, and bottled water. After asking a few villagers for directions, he finally stood outside Amara's tiny home. Before he could knock, he heard violent coughing from inside. Amara rushed to support her father, gently helping him drink water. She smiled at him, pretending everything was fine, even though her own heart was breaking. David quietly knocked on the wooden door. When Amara opened it, surprise filled her face. "Mr. David, what are you doing here?" He smiled warmly. "I thought your father might need these." He handed her the medicine and groceries. For a moment, Amara couldn't speak. No stranger had ever shown her such kindness. Inside the house, Chinita struggled to stand. "My son," he said with a weak smile, "may God reward you for helping people you've never met." David respectfully shook his hand. "It's nothing, sir." But to that poor family, it meant everything. Over the next few days, David kept returning. He repaired the leaking roof with his own hands. He carried heavy buckets of water from the village well. He even sat beside Chinidu for hours, listening to stories about the village and laughing like they had known each other for years. Slowly, the distance between David and Amara disappeared. They laughed together, worked together, and before either of them realized it, their friendship was turning into something much deeper. But not everyone was happy. The villagers began whispering, "Why does the billionaire's son keep visiting that poor girl?" Rumors spread from house to house until they finally reached the luxurious Okoye mansion. When Victoria Okoye heard the news, her face turned cold. She looked at her husband and said, "I don't care who that girl is. This ends today." Neither David nor Amara knew that the greatest obstacle to their love had just awakened. Part 3. Voiceover script, 2,000 characters. Love has a strange way of growing, quietly, gently, and without asking for permission. Every morning, David found another reason to visit the village. Sometimes he brought medicine for Chinidu. sometimes fresh fruit. Other times, he came with nothing at all, except the hope of seeing Amara smile. One peaceful evening, they walked together beneath an old mango tree overlooking the river. The golden sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and red, while a cool breeze carried the sounds of birds returning home. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, David broke the silence. "I came here to inspect land." He smiled softly. "But instead, I found someone who changed my life." Amara lowered her eyes, her heart racing. "David, please don't." He stepped closer. "I love you, Amara. I don't care that you're poor. I don't care where you come from. I only care about you." Tears slowly filled Amara's eyes. She had dreamed of hearing those words, but she also feared them. She looked at David and whispered, "You belong to a world I'll never be part of. Your family will never accept someone like me." David gently held her hand. "Then I'll fight the whole world if I have to." For the first time, Amara allowed herself to believe that happiness might actually be possible. But while they shared that beautiful moment, someone else was watching. Hidden behind the dark window of a black luxury SUV, Victoria Okoye stared at them with cold, unforgiving eyes. Every smile between David and Amara felt like an insult to her family's name. Without saying a single word, she ordered the driver to follow Amara home. The next morning, Victoria stepped out of her luxury car and walked toward the tiny mud house with disgust written across her face. She looked around the poor home as though it were beneath her. Then she threw a thick envelope full of cash onto the old wooden table. "Take the money," she said coldly. "Leave my son's life forever." The room fell silent. Amara looked at the envelope, then at her sick father. The money could pay for his treatment. It could change their lives forever. But love could never be bought. She slowly picked up the envelope and walked toward Victoria. Part 4, Voiceover Script, 2,000 characters. Amara slowly looked at the thick envelope lying in her hands. For a brief moment, her eyes drifted toward her father. Chinedu was sitting quietly in the corner, struggling to breathe. That money could pay for his medicine, repair their tiny house, and finally give them a better life. But some things were worth more than money. Without saying a word, Amara walked toward Victoria and gently placed the envelope back into her hands. "I may be poor," she said calmly, "but my heart isn't for sale." Victoria couldn't believe what she had just heard. No one had ever dared to reject her money. Her face turned red with anger. "You'll regret this," she said through clenched teeth. "People like you should know their place." With that, she stormed out of the house and drove back to the Okoye mansion. That evening, the atmosphere inside the mansion was colder than ever. Victoria marched straight into Ethan's office. "Our son has lost his mind," she said furiously. "He's willing to throw away his future for a poor village girl." Ethan remained silent for a moment before replying, "Maybe we should at least meet the girl before judging her." Victoria slammed her hand against the desk. "I don't need to meet her. She's after our family's wealth." Just then, David walked into the room. "I heard everything," he said. Victoria turned toward him. "Good. Then listen carefully. You will never marry that girl." David looked directly into his mother's eyes. "You don't even know her." "I know enough," Victoria replied. David took a deep breath. "No, Mother. You only know how much money she doesn't have." The room fell completely silent. Even Ethan was surprised by his son's courage. Victoria pointed toward the mansion door. "If you choose that girl, then you are choosing to leave this family." David didn't hesitate. "I'd rather lose my inheritance than lose the woman I love." Without another word, he turned around and walked away. Heavy rain poured outside as he stepped through the mansion gates. Behind him, Victoria stood frozen with anger. She had declared war on Amara. But David had just declared something even bigger. He was willing to sacrifice everything for love. The rain had finally stopped. As the first rays of sunlight touched the village, David stood outside Amara's small home, carrying nothing except hope. Behind him, the luxurious life he had known was gone forever. He had walked away from wealth, power, and his family's inheritance, all for the woman he truly loved. The old wooden door slowly opened. Amara stepped outside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then David smiled. "I told you I'd come back." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks as she ran toward him. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that love could overcome every obstacle. Moments later, Chinita walked outside. Looking at David, he saw not a billionaire's son, but a man willing to sacrifice everything for his daughter. "My son," Chinita said with a gentle smile, "money can build a mansion, but only love can build a family." David respectfully bowed his head. "Sir, I love Amara with all my heart. I promise to honor her, protect her, and stand beside her for the rest of my life." The old man looked at his daughter. "Amara, do you love him?" Without hesitation, she nodded. More than anything, a warm smile spread across Chinita's face. "Then you have my blessing." David slowly took a small ring from his pocket and looked into Amara's eyes. "Amara Nwosu, will you marry me?" She could no longer hold back her tears. With a trembling voice, she whispered, "Yes, I will." David gently placed the ring on her finger as the morning sun broke through the clouds. A few weeks later, the entire village gathered for their simple wedding. There were no golden chandeliers, no luxury cars, no expensive decorations, only smiling faces, heartfelt prayers, and genuine love. Even Ethan Okoye quietly attended the ceremony. He embraced his son and welcomed Amara into the family. Watching from a distance, Victoria finally realized that money could control many things. But it could never control a sincere heart. Slowly, she walked toward Amara. "I'm sorry," she said with tears in her eyes. "I judged you because of your poverty, instead of seeing your kindness." Amara smiled gently and embraced her. That day, the Okoye family became whole again. And the girl who once feared she would never be accepted became the daughter the family never knew they needed. Sometimes, the richest person is not the one who owns the most money, but the one who is loved the most.